It was supposed to be a fresh start. For years, the Thompson family had lived in a cramped apartment in downtown Chicago, dreaming of something bigger, quieter, and more peaceful. When Sarah Thompson inherited her late aunt's property, a sprawling farmhouse nestled in the countryside of upstate New York, they saw it as a sign. A chance to leave behind the noise, the chaos, and the stress of city life. But as they drove down the narrow dirt road leading to the house, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The trees lining the path seemed too close, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The air was heavy, almost oppressive, and an eerie silence hung over the landscape, broken only by the crunch of gravel beneath their tires. "Looks like we're here," said Mark, her husband, breaking the tension with forced cheerfulness. He gestured toward the old house looming ahead. It was beautiful in its own way, with white painted wood siding and a wraparound porch adorned with faded flower boxes. But there was something unsettling about how isolated it felt, surrounded by dense woods on all sides. Their two children, Emily, 12, and Jake, 9, were less skeptical. They bounced excitedly in their seats, eager to explore their new home. "Can we go inside now?" Emily asked, pressing her face against the car window. "I want to see my room." Sarah forced a smile. "Sure, sweetie. Let's grab our stuff first." As they unloaded the car, Sarah noticed something odd. There was no mailbox at the end of the driveway, just a rusted metal post jutting out of the ground. She pointed it out to Mark, who shrugged. Maybe the previous owner didn't use one, or maybe it got stolen. "It's weird," Sarah muttered under her breath. "What kind of place doesn't have a mailbox?" Mark laughed nervously. "Relax, Sar. It's probably nothing. Let's focus on unpacking, okay?" Inside, the house was charming but dated. The floors creaked underfoot, and the wallpaper in the living room was peeling slightly at the edges. Still, it had character. The kitchen had an antique stove that looked straight out of the 1950s, and the bedrooms upstairs were spacious, each with its own unique quirks. Emily claimed the largest bedroom, which had a bay window overlooking the backyard. Jake took the smaller one next door, declaring it perfect for building forts. As they settled in, Sarah tried to ignore the strange sensation prickling at the back of her neck, a sense that they weren't alone. That night, as the family sat together in the living room, the house began to reveal its secrets. At first, it was subtle. A faint tapping sound echoed through the hallway, like someone lightly rapping on wood. Mark dismissed it as the house settling, but Sarah wasn't convinced. She stood up and walked to the source of the noise, finding herself standing in front of a closed door at the end of the hall. "What's this room?" she asked, turning to Mark. He frowned. "I don't know. I haven't checked it yet. Probably just storage or something." When he opened the door, they found a small, dimly lit space filled with dusty furniture and boxes stacked haphazardly against the walls. In the corner stood an old rocking chair, swaying gently despite the absence of any breeze. Sarah froze. "Did you see that?" Mark squinted at the chair. "See what?" "It moved," she whispered. "The chair. It was rocking." "You're imagining things," he said, though his voice lacked conviction. He quickly shut the door and led her back to the living room. "Let's just call it a night, okay?" Later, as Sarah lay in bed, she heard it again, the soft, rhythmic creak of the rocking chair. This time, it was accompanied by another sound, a low, guttural whisper coming from somewhere deep within the house. She strained her ears, trying to make out the words, but they were muffled, distorted. She shook Mark awake. "Do you hear that?" He groaned, half asleep. "Hear what?" "The whispers," she hissed. "They're coming from downstairs." Mark sighed and rolled over. "Probably just the wind. Go back to sleep." But Sarah couldn't. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, until they sounded like they were right outside their bedroom door. She clutched the blanket tightly, her heart pounding in her chest. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, she slipped out of bed and crept into the hallway. The whispers stopped the moment she stepped outside the room. The house was silent once more, save for the occasional groan of the floorboards beneath her feet. She hesitated, then made her way downstairs to investigate. In the kitchen, she found nothing amiss. The cabinets were closed, the windows locked. Yet as she turned to leave, she caught a glimpse of movement in the reflection of the glass, a shadowy figure standing just behind her. She spun around, heart racing, but there was no one there. Over breakfast the next morning, Sarah decided to broach the subject with Mark. "I think we need to look into the history of this place," she said cautiously. "There's something off about it." Mark raised an eyebrow. "You really think that's necessary? It's just an old house, Sar." "No, it's not just an old house," she insisted. "Last night, I swear I saw someone in the kitchen. And those whispers..." Before he could respond, Emily piped up. "I heard them too. Last night, when I was going to bed, I thought I heard voices coming from the attic." Jake nodded eagerly. "Me too. I thought it was ghosts." Mark chuckled uneasily. "Kids, stop trying to scare your mom. Ghosts aren't real." But Sarah wasn't laughing. She grabbed her laptop and began searching for information about the property. After some digging, she stumbled upon an article from a local newspaper dating back to the 1970s. The headline read, "Tragedy strikes Hollow Creek Farm. Family found dead in mysterious circumstances." According to the article, the previous owners, a couple named Harold and Margaret Grayson, had vanished without a trace. Their bodies were discovered weeks later in the woods surrounding the property, their faces frozen in expressions of sheer terror. Authorities never determined the cause of death, citing unknown natural causes. Even more chilling was the mention of a local legend tied to the land. According to folklore, the area known as Hollow Creek was cursed. Centuries ago, it had been the site of a brutal massacre involving settlers and Native American tribes. The spirits of those killed were said to linger, seeking vengeance on anyone foolish enough to trespass on their sacred ground. Sarah shared her findings with Mark, who remained skeptical. "Legends are just stories, Sar. People love to make up creepy tales about old places." "But what if it's true?" she pressed. "What if whatever happened to the Graysons is still here?" Mark sighed. "Look, let's give it a few days. If things keep getting weird, we'll talk to someone about it, okay?" Reluctantly, Sarah agreed. The next few days passed uneventfully, or so it seemed. During the day, the house was quiet, almost serene. But at night, the disturbances returned with a vengeance. One evening, while putting the kids to bed, Sarah noticed strange symbols carved into the baseboards of Emily's room. They resembled crude drawings of eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. When she asked Emily about them, her daughter looked genuinely confused. "I didn't do that," she said. "They weren't there before." That same night, Mark woke up screaming. He claimed he'd seen a woman standing at the foot of their bed, her face pale and gaunt, her lips moving silently. Sarah rushed to comfort him, but when she turned on the light, the room was empty. Then came the dreams. Vivid, terrifying visions of the forest surrounding the house. In these dreams, Sarah would find herself walking among the trees, drawn deeper and deeper into the wood by an unseen force. Each time she would awaken drenched in sweat, her heart hammering in her chest. Desperate for answers, Sarah visited the local library in town. The librarian, an elderly woman named Mrs. Hargrove, recognized the address immediately. "Oh yes," she said grimly. "That old farm, terrible things have happened there." She handed Sarah a folder containing newspaper clippings and handwritten notes. Among them was a journal entry written by Margaret Grayson shortly before her disappearance. In it, she described hearing voices in the walls, seeing shadows move where none should exist, and feeling an overwhelming sense of dread whenever she entered certain rooms. She believed the house was alive, Mrs. Hargrove explained, that it fed on fear and despair. Sarah left the library shaken but determined. That evening she confronted Mark. "We can't stay here," she said firmly. "Not after everything I've learned." Mark hesitated. "Are you sure? Maybe it's all in your head. Stress from the move. Lack of sleep." "No," Sarah interrupted. "This isn't just stress. Something evil is in this house, and it's targeting us." That night, the family packed their bags and prepared to leave. But as they loaded the car, the engine refused to start. No matter how many times Mark turned the key, the vehicle remained dead. Frustrated, he popped the hood to investigate. Meanwhile, Sarah noticed movement in the trees beyond the driveway. At first, she thought it was animals, but then she saw them, dozens of shadowy figures emerging from the forest, their hollow eyes fixed on the house. "Mark!" she shouted. "Get back inside!" They barricaded themselves in the living room, clutching whatever makeshift weapons they could find. The whispers returned, louder than ever, filling the air with a cacophony of guttural murmurs. The temperature plummeted, frost forming on the windows. Suddenly, the front door burst open, revealing a swirling vortex of darkness. From within, a figure stepped forward, a tall, emaciated man with sunken eyes and a twisted grin. His voice was a rasping growl. "You shouldn't have come here." Without hesitation, Sarah grabbed the children and ran for the back door. Miraculously, it opened, and they fled into the night. Behind them, the house groaned and shuddered, collapsing in on itself in a violent explosion of splintered wood and shattered glass. Exhausted but alive, the Thompsons staggered down the road until they reached the safety of a neighbor's house. When authorities arrived the next morning, they found nothing but a charred crater where the farmhouse once stood. Months later, the Thompsons had relocated to a cozy suburban home in Illinois. Life slowly returned to normal, though the memories of Hollow Creek haunted them still. One evening, as Sarah tucked Emily into bed, her daughter asked, "Mom, do you think the bad thing followed us?" Sarah smiled reassuringly. "No, sweetheart, we're safe now." But as she turned off the light, she couldn't shake the faint sound of whispers drifting through the vents.